Welcome back to Morning Line on this Thursday. Nick Barris along with Lisa Hallum. She is with the VA, and she's very involved, obviously, with the, as we've been talking about all morning, domestic violence effort. Veterans Administration involved with it. You know, Murfreesboro, big campus there. Of course, there's a campus over here near Vanderbilt, downtown Nashville. When it comes to domestic violence, and we were talking during the break, you said it's important to distinguish the different forms of it, how it comes. And by the way, violence doesn't necessarily mean it always has to be physical too. We kind of touched on that earlier.
Right, yes. So I'm going to touch on physical violence first.
Okay.
And this is, I'm going to just mention some examples, but there's a lot more than what I'm just going to list. But of course, hitting, biting, restraining, hair pulling, pinching, slapping, kicking, strangulation, and punching.
That covers it, right?
Use of a weapon also.
Now, use of a weapon. So you're saying some of that's just with your fists, but if you grab a stick or something.
Right. Any type of object can be used. Also, emotional abuse involves name-calling, destruction of property, stalking, insulting, and threats. So there's a lot more than what I just listed. But what we see a lot is the stalking that's emotional abuse, because stalking, of course, involves keeping track of the partner, tracking their phone, checking their phone, following them, or having them followed, continuously calling them to find out their whereabouts. But of course, the threats, the intimidation that we talked about earlier, and then also it can come in the form of financial. If the user of the violence wants to control their partner, they can withhold finances, take them off the bank account. So that's also considered emotional abuse. And then you have sexual abuse as well. A lot of people don't think about, intimate partner abuse having sexual abuse. But that involves pressuring or coercing a partner to engage in sexual activity against their will and without their consent. So those are the three forms of violence. And violence is all about power and control. So it's all about a partner wanting to do things like isolate their partner from their family and friends because of extreme jealousy that they have. Like I said, controlling the finances, bullying, insulting them in front of other people, embarrassing them in front of other people. Those are different forms of power and control that we see a lot in intimate partner violence.
Yeah, I mean, you go down that whole long list, and I'm trying to get a handle on, and maybe it's different for some who've gone through PTSD, that's kind of but the psychology behind the whole stalking, the control, the possessiveness, are these just individuals who just have no self-esteem, no self-pride, that want to treat another person like they're their property? What is the, and I know you're not a psychologist, but what do you see?
But I'm a clinical social worker.
Okay, so what is the psychology behind this? It's very ugly, and I think it's a reflection on that person's view of his or herself that they treat someone else this way. And I'm trying to get a handle on how they become this way. And again, that's separate from the anger issues that can come out from PTSD or some horrible experiences many of these soldiers experienced overseas. I'm not making excuses, but I can understand that. Some of this other stuff, I'm like, where did things go wrong with you that a girl breaks up with you and you need to stalk them and threaten them? What the heck is wrong with you?
A lot of it does stem from low self-esteem and low self-worth.
Yeah.
And a lot of these users of violence have experienced violence maybe in their childhood. There may have been a person that they lived in the home with who was violent to the partner. They may have grown up with a mother who had a husband, a stepdad, or a boyfriend who was violent. So they may have experienced it themselves.
It's kind of what they know. It's something that...
and it's kind of and they may have had a father figure in the home who was very controlling of their partner.
So that's what they saw.
It can be a learned behavior, but it also can stem from low self-esteem, low self-worth, a person who really feels negatively about themselves because maybe they're unemployed. They have a negative view of themselves and a negative image, and so they have this fear of their partner leaving them finding happiness with someone else.
No one likes that, okay? I mean, that's not a fun thing, and it's difficult for everyone. But for some reason, for some folks, it manifests itself in violence and stalking. And look, if someone's leaving you, you know, stalking them and committing violence ain't going to make them come back to you. It makes no sense.
Right. And they really don't have that understanding. And they really, that's why the education is so important for them to be able to understand. And that Strength at Home users group is very helpful in providing education about that and how veterans can improve their self-esteem and their self-worth. What are some goals, individual goals that they have, you know, that they can work on to help them to feel better about themselves as individuals and not feel threatened when their partner wants to go out with friends or wants to be with their family. So it's very important, that education, because a lot of times some of these people really don't think there's anything wrong with it. They don't see the pathology and the dysfunction in stalking their partner or being emotionally abusive to them. So education is a big piece.
Yeah, and the stalking part, and I've done stories on when this kind of thing has happened. Eventually, sometimes, you know, you get these order of protections, and I always talk to the vast majority of the cases. 99.99999% are women who are the victims here, or the receivers. But they then have to walk around looking over their shoulders. Orders of protection can be a handy tool, but it doesn't stop it. And that's what worries me sometimes too, you know. I mean, that's why I think it's crucial that organizations like you help, you know, these users that use the violence to understand it and back off.
Yes.
Because if you don't, I can't imagine these women having to walk around wondering if they're going to come out on the way to work one morning and, you know, this dude's going to be standing there next to their car waiting for them.
Exactly. And that's where it's so important that we're going to be rolling out the couple safety planning with mental health providers and the social workers throughout Tennessee Valley, so that they understand that when to look for the cues. You know, what are some cues when you're talking with a veteran that there's intimate partner violence going on or there's a risk for it. And when they notice those cues, that's their cue to do safety planning themselves with the veteran and their partner, as long as their partner's willing, or to refer to our organization, you know, the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program for that.
We'll take a break. It's our final segment. When we come back, we'll talk about if someone's out there that knows they need help, what's the first step they take, and then we'll just go over that list of the various places you can seek it. Through the VA, and I know sometimes you may get calls where it doesn't exactly fit what you all do, but if anything else, you'll be able to refer them, which is always helpful. So we'll have some numbers up for you as well if you want to get a pen and paper. Coming back in our final segment with our guest right after this.